Today we're talking about the fastest growing epidemic in the United States. And no, I'm not talking about COVID-19. Hi, Dave from Real Healthy News here. This silent killer infects over 300,000 Americans each and every year. And the truth is, there's likely many, many more who are going undiagnosed and are suffering from this terrible disease. In fact, the symptoms can be so severe, as you'll hear from my guest, that you may even question your will to live. The disease affects people from all walks of life, even a former U.S. president. What disease are we talking about? Well, we're about to find out right now. Hi, I'm here with Bob Compton, CFO of a billion-dollar private company, a reader of Real Healthy News, and a survivor of the fastest-growing epidemic in the United States that infects over 300,000 Americans each year. It's a disease that goes underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed in its severity, underreported. We're talking about Lyme disease. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Now, I know a little bit about your story of your Lyme disease story that you told a little bit ahead of time. So I have some knowledge, and I just want to say, medical privacy is really important, especially this day and age where all sorts of privacy is being attacked. And so I do appreciate you sharing what you can and what you're willing to about your story. And I think really the best way for people to understand the severity of Lyme disease and all of the failure of the medical establishment surrounding it is to hear you tell your story. Bob, let's take everyone to the beginning. Take everyone to sort of day one
Sure.
of your story, and let's walk through your journey through this.
Okay. Well, it was Labor Day of 2014. I was getting up to go for a mountain bike ride, and when I woke up, I didn't feel right. I thought a cold was coming on. And the way I work, I figured, well, I'll just go for my mountain bike ride and I'll sweat this thing out.
Mm-hmm.
And I rode, and I didn't have any problems riding. And after about 2 hours, a group of guys, we stop and we chat. However, when we stopped, I couldn't stay to chat. There was something wrong with my stomach. I was in severe discomfort. So I raced home, and I did what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but throughout the day, things started to change, and they started to change rapidly with me. And this was a Saturday, that Labor Day in 2014. And the stomach pain didn't quite go away. But then I started getting chills and fever. And at one point, I thought I was hallucinating. Now, I didn't tell my family. I didn't want to scare them. But probably around 7 o'clock, I figured, I'm done for today. I'm going to go to sleep. But as I laid down, I was feeling so bad. I remember having the thought vividly, I may not wake up in the morning. Hmm. And that was where these things just started to spiral out of control and go down different paths. That whole Labor Day, I pretty much stayed in bed. I didn't have energy to do anything.
Now, is that, if you don't mind me jumping in, is that unusual for you? You're a biker, so I would assume you're fairly active. Do you typically get sick a lot? Are you otherwise healthy at this point?
No, I'm usually very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall the last time I had the flu or anything that set me back like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this thing really just knocked me on my rear. But then as the weeks, I've never missed work. It's another thing. So I will push through these colds. This one, I would come into work and I just knew something was wrong, but I had to prepare for a trip to Australia that was coming up that weekend. And the way you fly to Australia, you leave on Friday, you get there on Sunday. But then these stomach problems turned into bleeding. And this, I did not understand. But it was like my gut was just flushing blood through my system, which is extremely scary, beyond belief. But because I'm stubborn and I had to be in Australia, I didn't say a word. But that whole time, when Friday came and I had to get on the plane to Australia, I'm racing from bathroom to bathroom. I'm waiting for that light to say, you can take your seatbelt off so I can race to the bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
So
what are you thinking at this point? You're a driven guy. You've got you're going across the Pacific Ocean to another continent. But meanwhile, there's this very real problem. What's your state of mind here?
Well, I'm extremely scared, but but my thing is I don't want to spread that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I just deal with it. I deal with the bleeding. That's essentially what it was. And when I went to Australia, I would just go to the meetings. I'd come back to my hotel room. I didn't go out. I didn't socialize, which is very unlike me. So I was just hoping it would go away. Typical. It'll go away. But when I came back, I contacted my doctor. I told him my symptoms. And he just said it was a virus. It will pass. And fine. It seemed to pass. That issue of the bleeding seemed to pass. But then the next phase was I had this incredible burning sensation down my neck. Now, maybe I'm a typical guy, but I try and justify, I try and rationalize everything.
Yeah.
And I've had injuries from mountain biking and different things, so I know I have a ruptured and herniated disc. I figured I just have to go to the chiropractor, get that taken care of. Fine, but it wasn't going away. And then over time, it started to spread. This burning pain started to spread into my joints. And it was mainly going down my right side. It affected my right shoulder, my right hip, my right knee. It felt like somebody ground glass up and put it in my joints. It became so painful. So I go back to my doctor and I call him. I say, Doc, now these are the new symptoms I'm having. He said, come on in, we'll do some blood tests. And we did blood work and nothing came up. And even being tested for Lyme came up negative.
What the heck?
Well, it's fine. I didn't think I had Lyme disease. So that was fine.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well, something's wrong with me. So then I have to go through, we're testing now for Parkinson's, ALS, MS. We're looking at colon cancer because I was bleeding.
But I mean, from my perspective, I'm talking to a Lyme disease survivor who got a Lyme disease test and it came back negative. Something's not working here in the story.
That's because there isn't a valid test. That's the underlying problem. There isn't an accurate test. But meanwhile, I go through all these other barrage of tests, and going to the gastroenterologist was the most extreme because I always have to have an exam.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like the gentleman didn't believe me to begin with, and then I really felt like he just took it out on me. I hate to say it like that. It was one of the most embarrassing episodes of my career having to deal with somebody. So again, I limp out of there. And I go home because he told me as well, it's a virus. There's no evidence, though, the virus still exists. Okay. What am I supposed to do? I relied on my primary care physician. He says the virus. I rely on this expert. He says it's a virus. Let's see what happens. So then I try to exist to the best I can. But the problem is the symptoms are getting worse. I get on my phone, I talk to my doctor, I said, Doc, this is chronic pain now. It's not going away. And then I start noticing my cognitive function is waning. Something is wrong with my mind. I could say, this is obviously a piece of paper, but I'd ask somebody, hey, can you pass me the pen? It's paper. Why is my head now saying pen? Therefore, this continues, I stop talking. I eventually, like I said, I'm just existing. I can no longer, the right side is shutting down. I can no longer lift my hand. When I come to work, I put my right hand on the keyboard with my left hand. To get into my car, I lift my right leg up to get into the car.
Oh my God.
Put my pants on, I drop them onto the floor. And at this point, I'm pretty much at wit's end to where this is not my life. This is not a life that I want to live. This is not a burden I want to place on my family. Therefore, I'm looking for the right to die states. I'm getting to the end. I am so depressed. I can't do anything. I'm just a liability to my family, and I feel like to everybody else around me. And then somebody said, you should talk to a friend of mine. It sounds like you should go see a Lyme doctor. And there are these LLMDs, Lyme literate medical doctors. And I figured at this point, what the hell do I have to lose? Nobody else is there. And within 5 minutes of talking to this lady, she said I had Lyme disease. To which I told her, I tested negative.
Just through verbal?
Yes,
wow.
Because of my symptoms. And she said, well, we should start you on medication for Lyme disease right away. And I said, fine, if you think that's what it is. And she also said, we're going to have another script for blood work. Okay, we did it. We did the blood work. I came back again, negative for Lyme, but because she did this full tick-borne panel, what I didn't know is ticks carry many diseases. They have all these co-infections.
Okay.
It came back positive for babesiosis, which is something I'd never heard of. And I didn't believe. I doubted her. Everybody else told me they couldn't figure it out. How do you know?
So you're thinking maybe she's full of it, potentially?
At this point, I think she's a crock. I really do. Because I've never heard of any of the things she's talking about.
Yeah,
I didn't develop a bullseye. I don't recall a bullseye. The flu-like symptoms, yeah, that's probably what happened early on in Labor Day. But then looking back, it's like I do recall finding a tick. But months had passed since I discovered that tick. Months prior to Labor Day. It was underneath my waistband of underwear. I remember finding it and removing it.
So you just didn't think anything of it, right?
Right. I figured, well, if a bullseye develops, okay, then I have Lyme disease. I get a fever, I have Lyme disease. Fine, I'll take care of it. But nothing happened. So meanwhile, I get another test and it comes back again, negative for Lyme, positive for babesiosis, which then puts me on this new pathway. I have a big stack of all these papers.
Oh, goodness.
I was taking over 50 pills a day between the pills and the supplements. I was being prescribed heavy antibiotics. This was just a list of 3 scripts from one appointment. The day that she said, now I'm going to prescribe what they call liquid gold, and it's Mepron. And I'm like, well, why do they call it liquid gold? Well, it's yellow in color, but it's also $700 a bottle.
Oh my God.
And because I had to double the dose, I had to buy 2 bottles a month. And this process lasted. I didn't feel normal until the end of 2015. That's when I decided I think I can start rebuilding my life. Meanwhile, I had to fill out these charts. You can't see these things, but it's like this chart. Okay. Every day, I had to put down how I felt that day, any improvement. And week would go by, no improvement. I feel miserable. Another week would go by. I feel miserable. And then finally, I'd have one good day. And that's how it just started to build. Eventually, I'd have 2 good days. And then the light started to come back out. However, it was an extreme ordeal. I say I'm lucky because now, once you have this bacteria inside of you, it's my understanding it never leaves you. Mm-hmm. It's like chicken pox. You just have to suppress the level low enough to where it doesn't affect you.
So you've been able to where would you call yourself physically? Before all this happened, how far have you been able to dig yourself out of this hole physically? Are you, if you can put a percent back to where
I'm feeling 100% now.
So you feel?
Yes.
Why aren't we, I don't know, for lack of a better term, scaring the public about this sort of a thing, about the real danger? And even me, I recall getting a tick on me when I was a kid, when I was about 13, and I don't think it latched on or whatever, and I knocked it off, and I didn't think anything of it. And there was nothing inside my head that says, oh, this is a nasty thing. Like I have more of a fear of spiders, even though the chance of a spider actually doing anything to me are much lower probably than a tick latching onto me for a few days or something like that. There's, we have fears of other insects or threats to our health that maybe are out of balance in comparison. Meanwhile, there's this thing here that is a real danger, gets underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed. Meanwhile, people are suffering. Doctors won't believe them, and it's like this needs to be front and center, I think, for any kind of health awareness.
It does, and it wasn't. But Dave, why doesn't it get the coverage? I have no idea. I think it was just probably 3 years ago when the CDC said there was 30,000 cases a year. And now they're saying it's 300,000. Mm-hmm. The numbers are only going to multiply.
Yeah,
I believe there are probably environmental issues that are creating these super bugs. But as we continue to spread out into the country, more people are being exposed. And it's not just staying here in the U.S. It's spreading across the world. Mm-hmm. There's Lyme disease in the UK. There's Lyme disease in Australia or some other tick-borne diseases. Unfortunately, I think, today it's COVID. That's the hot topic. Mm-hmm. But it should be Lyme disease. If you talk to people, and there's a number of celebrities that are suffering, this disease, if not caught early, is extremely debilitating. I believe it leads to a higher rate of suicide.
Now, I mean, the problem too, as I see it, is the way the bacteria attacks your body in so many different ways that it's not. I mean, the symptoms are really, to be honest, just all over the place. I mean, I'm looking at a couple here. I mean, aside the ones you mentioned, but some of the top ones for early are, flu-like symptoms: headaches, neck stiffness, rash, joint pain, lightheadedness, shortness of breath, chest pain, shooting pains, facial nerve. I mean, this could be
Bell palsy. Yes.
right. This could be anything.
Right. I think they call it the great impersonator, this disease, because it takes on so many different characteristics that's very difficult to diagnose. Yet you would think with a proper blood test, you could figure this out.
And it's just so strange too. I mean, even continuing, I got still a list of people. Alec Baldwin, and he tells a story here. This probably you can relate to this, Bob. I'm reading here from an article in Business Insider. He says, I got the classic Lyme disease symptoms for each successive summer for 5 years. I guess he had it for a while. It's like flu-like symptoms, sweating to death in my bed. He says, the first time was the worst of all, he recalled, and I really thought, this is it. I'm not going to live. I was lying in my bed saying, I'm going to die of Lyme disease in my bed. That's his Alec Baldwin. I'm sure that rings true to you. George W. Bush, President George W. Bush was treated for Lyme disease in 2007. Now he's a president, so they're going to catch it early. Ben Stiller, Ashley Olsen, Richard Gere, Shania Twain. You wonder why we didn't see Shania Twain for a while? She was battling Lyme disease, everyone. I mean, it just affects everyone, all walks of life. And even, the rich and famous they have what you presume to be the best medical care they can get. And even they're still, you heard that story by Alec Baldwin. It is just incredible. But at least everyone here watching now can get maybe a head start on this, Meanwhile, as even if the government isn't, putting a message out there enough, or your own doctor isn't doing it, but you can sort of take charge of your own health here, right? And follow your example, Bob. Maybe everyone watching here, that's what they can maybe take away.
No, that's definitely true. You know your body. You have to take control of your health. You're the advocate. You have to push for proper diagnosis, proper treatment, because otherwise they're just going to try and follow a textbook way of treating whatever it is your symptoms are. Yeah. And that's the wrong thing to do.
So obviously you had a battery of treatment that we've talked about, and certainly if you are diagnosed or if you suspect that you may have Lyme disease, to certainly talk to your doctor. But given Bob's experience, to seek out a Lyme doctor, an LLMD as he called it. But if we can avoid all that sort of suffering that many people with Lyme disease have to go through, what can people do? What are sort of the first lines of defenses that people can take?
Okay, well, those are great questions, and I've done a lot. I still go into the woods, so I can tell you some of the things I do. They said one of the pieces of advice is, if you're going to go out into high brush, wear light colored clothing so you can see the ticks, and then tuck like your pants legs into your socks, so it's harder for the ticks to get underneath the clothing. But what I do all the time is I put DEET on, and when I ran out to my car prior to this, because I carry these things around, so I have like this little packet, and all it is I peel it open, and it's a cloth, and I wipe it on my arms and my legs, my neck, and I will put on my clothing. Now there are products that I know you can get at REI that you can spray on your clothing that will last multiple washes, which is also helpful.
That's like the ingredient permethrin, right? I believe
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually have that. I just for extra protection on my dog. It's pet safe, by the way, and it does stay through. I think for dogs, I think they say 6 washings. So I give her a bath every few weeks. So it's basically a good at least a month of protection for her.
No, these things are out there. Just a lot of people aren't aware of them, and maybe DEET's not for you. There's other natural things that you can buy. Because of my experience, I'm going with DEET.
Yeah, I do have to say, if I could just jump in for a sec. Now, I get the idea of wearing long. I mean, clearly, if you're going to go through a brush, I mean, definitely wear long socks. That makes sense. But chances are, and maybe this is probably why what you do with the DEET, maybe just an extra level of protection but comfort. But chances are, Bob, we're out there in the summer, And you know what? We're probably not going to be in pants and long sleeve shirts and tucking everything in.
That is
I mean,
true.
I think that kind of advice is, yes, it would be ideal, but who's really going to follow that? I think maybe like a DEET spray or a wipe. I think that's certainly more effective, or at least.
You're exactly right. I do not wear long pants in the summertime. I just know that this is a guideline and somebody might want to follow it. That's not for me.
Right.
I put the DEET on. And then when I come home, what I've done is I have a very coarse sponge.
Okay.
Therefore, I will scrub the heck out of my skin, just figuring if there is a tick that could be crawling around, I'm going to brush this thing off now and wash it down the drain.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do. You can spray your yard. There's these natural ingredients that they say will not kill the ticks, but they just move the ticks to your neighbor's yard.
I say kill them.
Well, that's could be harmful to your pets. But anyway, you can research all that. Now, if you find a tick and it's one where you have to extract it, you can use tweezers, or they make what they call a tick key.
Okay.
You can find these things.
What is that?
It's like a little piece of thin metal, but it comes down to a V.
Oh, okay.
And then you put it behind the tick and pull it in a way so that it does extract all of the tick, where the tweezers may not be as effective.
I see.
But if you do find that tick and it's been on you for a while, and I say you can try and follow the guidelines 24 hours. I feel if you have to extract it, don't take any chances. Tape the tick to a piece of Scotch tape. There are places that will test that tick, and they'll tell you what diseases that tick is carrying, if any. And the other thing is just ask for a prescription of doxycycline for 2 to 3 weeks. Now, you may have to ask for 3 weeks and challenge your doctor to prescribe it for that long, but if nothing else, please get on for 2 weeks. And hopefully then you will not have the issues that I encountered. Because you don't want to, I assure you of that.
So it is, you have to be active. You have to be vigilant. It's what it sounds like. I mean, this could be, I think it's something you need to put into your daily routine when you're going to be outside, and when you know that could be a risk. And I would say it's certainly worth it. Now, what did you think? Now, we talked about I want to just go to the medical establishment back again.
Sure.
Now, certainly you were failed in your misdiagnosis in the beginning. But talk about where you were failed, in other ways. Just this, looking at this system as a whole, because you have basically vast experience with how everything works. And for those who are out there, maybe a little bit, what are your thoughts there in dealing with this big medical establishment that we have in the United States?
I would say the medical establishment and the insurance industry. Where I was failed, I came back 3 times for negative for Lyme. Now, they had the co-infection of babesiosis, but I was negative for Lyme. I feel that the medical establishment, because they couldn't easily diagnose me, felt that a lot of what I had to say was in my head. They did not believe me. And that is extremely discomforting when you feel, like I said earlier, that the doctor is like a god. They should know everything. They should help you. That's their role.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't seeing it. And that was from multiple doctors. Then the CDC, where they don't recognize Lyme disease as being a chronic disease. That's wrong. And it's one of those things where you hate to say it, I wish one of the doctors that's on the CDC would actually get this and suffer from it, so that it could be a proper expert in the area instead of just basing their knowledge on hearsay. Because there are plenty of victims that they can talk to. And then the insurance industry for not covering this. This cost me at least $10,000. And like I said, I'm lucky.
Is this something that if you're, so you say you may be experiencing some of these symptoms, or maybe a family member potentially, where they might say, hey, you're maybe it could be misdiagnosed as something neurological and that sort of a thing. I mean, this should be should basically everyone go to their doctor not to recommend what people do, but shouldn't people have this in mind if they're kind of feeling, I don't know, something's maybe wrong with me? I mean, this very well could be Lyme, couldn't it?
It could be. And my recommendation there is don't just take no for an answer. Keep searching. I can't say it's Lyme disease, but you got to start ticking off every box. And just because a doctor's never heard of Lyme disease or seen the symptoms doesn't mean you don't have it.
What do we all need to do as Americans to raise awareness to this, and when people get these kinds of symptoms? I mean, what's the biggest thing that needs to change in regard to Lyme disease?
Number one, we need a test, a proper test, and then we need a vaccine. And if we can't come up with a vaccine, we need to have some treatment protocol established, one that we can agree upon, and not that no antibiotics are dangerous. You can't be on them for more than 2-3 weeks. That's not fixing the problem. There are enough people out there, and as you said, there are enough superstars, athletes, actors, even politicians.
Yeah,
they should be able to come together as a group and demand action.
I know.
300,000 today. That's just going to continue to grow. This disease is not slowing down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely shocking to me, considering that the high-profile people. I mean, a former president, guys, and it's still. And as we're waiting for the medical establishment to get itself together, you are left, Bob, as you're saying, being your own advocate, and even maybe some ways, kind of being your own doctor.
Yes.
Now, what would be your final words here on the topic to everyone watching?
I would make sure that people know about this disease, and they know about ticks and the dangers of ticks, and what to do if you find a tick on you. I did not know what to do, and that was the ignorance, because I just wasn't aware. I figured there would be a bullseye. Less than 50% of the people develop a bullseye. It's just education and then passing on that knowledge. That's how we're going to. We won't be preventing this, but we'll hopefully make it an easier experience for people that do contract it. That's all. It's just knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bob, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, and really thank you for getting so personal and revealing these really private details to all of us. It definitely does the world a service for you to sort of tell your story and all those really, potentially embarrassing details, Bob. But I guess, like you said, you're just an open book at this point, right?
That's right. What do I have to hide? No, I appreciate, Dave. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to gaining an understanding of this disease, because it's dangerous and it's harmful.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that eye-opening and sobering conversation about Lyme disease with my guest, Bob Compton. If you did, please subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. And to get instant access to credible health news and to learn how to become your own health advocate, head on over to realhealthynews.com or simply click the link at the bottom of the video.